Welcome to another episode of Make Mental Health Matter. I am really excited for today. I think I'm excited every day that I do a show, but really, I'm going to do the show myself. But if this is your first time watching and you happen to be watching on YouTube, make sure you mash down that or click the subscribe button, or if you happen to be watching this on any of the TV streaming platforms like E360 TV, Roku, Apple Fire, Amazon, whichever one you might be watching on, make sure you add this into your wish list, your watch list, your favorites, whatever that might be, so that you don't miss another episode. Because I promise you, every single guest that I have on is just incredible, and or the information that I give out, I think it's incredible too. So don't want you to miss out on any of the future episodes. So that's why I just say make sure you subscribe, send your friends over, tell everybody about it, whatever that looks like for you. But either way, make sure that you join us. I do the show every single Monday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. We might be shifting that time on Wednesdays, possibly. The reason why I had it so late was because my son at the time was taking breakdance class, and so I had to move it towards after. And ultimately, I had to do it later, but now I don't have to. So I may be shifting that a little bit earlier. That way, those of you that might be watching on the East Coast don't have to be up until 9 or later to be able to watch the show and or when I have guests on. So be on the lookout for that switch over. I don't know when that's going to happen, probably sooner than later. But either way, just make sure you follow along and then you'll get all those updates. So let's get into today. And I just want to shout out. So, this episode is brought to you by Dusty DeGruff at Edwards Jones, Denver, Colorado. Do you want a financial advisor who puts you first? Then call Dusty, and I will be showcasing a QR code. I just have to figure out how to do that with myself here. But anyways, I am doing the show today. I didn't have a guest book for today, and that's okay because there's a lot happening. And what I really wanted to talk about today is mental health and your brain. If you've been watching the show for quite some time, we I've had lots of conversations with other guests. We've talked a lot about the brain. I'm a nerd when it comes to the brain because it's so fascinating. These are things that I didn't even know 6 years ago, before I really started my journey into the mental health and wellness space. And that's what I really try to give back to you as the audience and give you any tools that might be helpful in the future. So, when we talk about the brain, it is really, truly so fascinating. And it can really bring us either down into those dark places, like I know so many people really, really struggle with. That can look like depression, it can be anxiety, it can also be, it can manifest into physical symptoms, ailments, disease. There's so many things that can happen from our brain and being in this like low state of energy. I feel like a lot of times our states, our physiology are based off of energy, and that's really what research also shows, because this thing in our heads is really, really powerful. And I know that I've had many, many mentors over the years tell me, what you think is what comes to fruition, or what you focus on, where what you focus on, your energy flows towards. So if you're focusing on all the negatives, what I call the Eeyore syndrome, nobody loves me, everybody hates me, I'm gonna go eat worms. Like, you even see as I say that, my body is going more down. It's like droopy, because I think about Eeyore and his his ears and how he was always just very sad. If you are somebody who used to watch Winnie the Pooh, you know what I'm talking about. If you have no idea who Eeyore is, Google it. But Eeyore was part of Winnie the Pooh's friends, and he was always the one that was very sad, and he didn't feel like he had any friends, and he talked very low and slow. And that's what I call the Eeyore syndrome. And if we are a person who is in this space that is really negative, maybe we have some life situations that are happening that ultimately we're in this funk, we're in this depression. Maybe we were just recently diagnosed with something that we never thought was going to be a thing. And now it's caused anxiety, or maybe there's a physical challenge that you're going through. Maybe your body doesn't move how it used to. Maybe your mind, your memory is starting to go. Things of that nature really start to come out when there is some sort of challenge happening with our brain. So our brain is a really, really powerful organ in our body that controls everything. And so when we're hyper focusing on those negative things, then we tend to go towards those negative things. It can even be something as simple as I I'm trying to think of a if I don't want something in my life. So maybe I'm somebody who I say I'm never going to be like that person because of XYZ, whatever they're doing. What happens is our brain doesn't process the negative. The negative would be I don't want to be. That's the negative part. Our brain is just processing the outcome of whatever this XYZ that they do. Maybe okay, I'm going to talk in the like mental health space or challenge space. So maybe you were somebody who grew up with abusive parents, and you promised yourself, I will never be like my parents. I will never do that to my child. What happens with our brain is that it doesn't process the I will never be. It just processes the outcome. So it processes the abuse. It processes the negatives, like the outcome of it. It processes the abuse, not the I don't want. Another example would be smoking. I don't want to smoke anymore. It's not processing the I don't want, it's processing the smoking. So instead of saying I don't want to smoke, we want to flip it or reframe it into a positive way. And this is where some people really get stuck, myself included. So I am here with you, and really, this is on the fly coming up with these things. So instead of saying I don't want to smoke anymore, what I would say is I want healthier habits in my life, and I want to be able to breathe. I don't know if that's like the right verbiage, but hopefully you get the gist. Or let's go back to the abuse one. So I don't want to be like my parents who were abusive. What I would change that to is I'm going to have respect for my children so that they respect and trust me. And I'm going to teach them how to be uh, uh, a good citizen. That's probably not the right verbiage either, but see how I'm instead of focusing on what I don't want, I'm going to focus on what I do want. And sometimes that reframe is what we call it, can be hard. It can be hard trying to just shift the energy into a positive. So I will speak from my personal experience. There was a time in my life that I was not making very much money. I was a single mom. I felt like I was doing everything. I was working at a restaurant. I just wasn't making very much money. I had to be on WIC, which is Women, Infant, Children. I had to get government assistance. I was on Medicaid. I utilized what I had, the resources that I had available to me at that time. And oftentimes the thoughts that I had were more of the negative. It was like, my situation is horrible. Everything bad happens to me. If I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have luck at all. Those are some of the words that cycled throughout my head, and then it was just like a poop storm after poop storm after poop storm, and that's how I felt. um I felt like just everything was like crashing in on me. Like I didn't have enough resources to make enough money to provide for my kids, so I had to rely on the government. And I promised myself after I got out of that I would never go back there. I promised that when I got my job in a corporation that I was going to be stable, I was going to make a lot of money, I was going to change my outcome versus ever having to go back to that situation. I can talk to it also just from like a substance use or substance abuse situation, not personally, but I've had lots of friends that were in that situation. And what happens is the cycle happens of like, um, I have this trauma. Now I am starting to use drugs. Maybe it starts off, and if you didn't watch my last episode, last Wednesday with Victor, go back and watch that because we talked about this too. Is that cycle of, well, I start out with maybe like prescription medication. Then I go to weed, or then I go to heroin, then I go to meth, then right? So it keeps toppling. And so you're just grabbing as many drugs as you can, putting them in your body because you had this trauma that now you are using the negative coping mechanism to numb your body, and it becomes a cycle. And the process of a in an addict situation is that it's hard to break that cycle. And once you break it, to actually stay on the right path, if you don't have the right tools or the right resources or the right words that you're saying to yourself. So instead of saying, I don't want to be an addict anymore, that's a negative. So we're going to shift it and reframe it into, I want to be healthy, happy, and whatever those words are for you. So I want to be healthy. I want to put healthy things into my body. So hopefully that's a little bit helpful of reframing how we're thinking. And going back to my story, is when I started focusing on the positives versus the negatives. So instead of the poop storm after poop storm after poop storm, I started focusing on the positive things that were happening. I met a new man. I um what was I doing back then? I'm like, that was so long ago. But 8 years ago, 7 years, 8 years ago. I started, I was starting to make money in my job at the time. And then I shifted into a corporation versus being at a restaurant. So then I was really starting to make good money there. So now I'm starting to focus on those positive things that are happening. And now I can practice gratitude. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to have a corporate job. I'm grateful to have this new man in my life. I'm grateful to have my son. I'm grateful to focus again on these positive things. And poop storms come up all the time, right? It's not perfect by any means, but I'm understanding and learning how refocusing my energy on the positives, even if they're super small things, like I have a roof over my head, I have a toothbrush to brush my teeth, I have I have family that's supportive and has helped me through these things. See how I'm shifting into the positives versus the negatives, because our brain is designed to protect us. It is designed to veer towards pleasure and veer away from pain. And when we think about the negatives, we're staying in that what we call the fight or flight. And we're like, if you think about, we're mammals, and back in the day we would have to fight for our life. We have to fight for food. We have to fight against animals or whatever was alive way back in the day, right? So this fight or flight mechanism in our brain is really like, truly, if you think about us as a mammal, it's like really instinctual in our bodies. If you happen to be a lion and you are trying to catch your prey, or maybe somebody's hunting you, right? Like you're gonna as this cat be in fight or flight all the time. Well, we want to get out of that. We want to get our brain out of that because we want to move towards pleasure, which is what our brain really, really likes. And in order to do that, it starts with us. It starts with the words that we say to ourselves. It starts with the words that we say to others about ourselves. It starts with how we present ourselves to the world. And it starts on us moving towards those positive things. And I'm not saying this is a bulletproof way of going about life, but I do know through my experience that it has been very, very helpful and has significantly shifted. We are also in charge of our mind, therefore our results. And so really, if we are constantly thinking about those negative things, then that's what we ultimately, like I was talking about earlier, it's that energy. Like I think of it as, I'm trying to stay in the screen here. I think of it as this like energy ball around us. Like this is what I can control. All the rest of this stuff out here, I can't really control you. I can't control my neighbors. I can't control other people. I can't control the environment. Even though I have a thermostat, like I can't really control the environment, but I can control this. I can control me, and I can control this thing. Although it may be hard for you that may be in a place that is in a negative space. But that's what a lot of myself and the guests that I bring on really talk about, is how do we move out of those spaces and into positive space. And so that's where these tools come in handy, is you can acknowledge those thoughts that you have. Maybe so I have had a lot of energy around money lately. There was a point at the, and this is just brutal honesty with you as the viewers, and being able to really bring you into like what this means for you and maybe your situation too. But I've had a lot of energy money around or a lot of energy around money, because there was a time earlier this year that I almost was just like, I have to walk away from my nonprofit, BCC Evolution, because I'm not bringing in the funding. Nothing's really getting rolling. How am I supposed to live my life when there's no resources, there's no funding? Like, how am I going to make all these programs actually happen when we have nothing coming in? I mean, there went months that we had no donations. and there was no no money coming in other than a few warriors for mental health, our monthly donors, which are our saviors. So thank you, all of you that are warriors for mental health, because you really truly, even though it's a small amount that comes in every single month, you are really our saviors that are keeping our doors open, allowing us to actually make our programs come to fruition and able for me to continue the work that I'm doing. But ultimately, I got to a place that I'm like, how much energy am I putting into this nonprofit, and what am I getting out of it? The scales, the energy was like up here, and what I was getting out of it was like way like energy up here, way down at the bottom. And for me, it didn't feel like it was something that I could continue. I was like, I have to go back and get a full-time job. I need to change my focus and go towards this versus worrying about the nonprofit. And so I came to a place that I ultimately almost stepped away because I didn't feel like it was anything that I can continue to do, because my energy around funding, and we missed multiple grant deadlines due to some miscommunication with the grant writer that we had brought on. And that was really frustrating because they were actual grants that we could have gotten and got the funding for, and something that I was really truly banking off of, and we didn't get them. And that became really frustrating. I mean, I got to the point that I almost had a mental breakdown myself, and I am the founder of a mental health and suicide prevention nonprofit. How could I be in this space? How could I be burnt out? We just went into our 5th year. Like, how am I already burnt out? And I had to ask those questions to myself. And I got to a place like I was crying all the time because I didn't know, like, that was so frustrating for me to not get those grants, because I was really banking off being able to have those grants and have that funding, and we didn't get them. So now I'm scrambling again, and this energy, it just keeps going and going, and then bills are piling up and things need to be paid, and I don't want to put all of the pressure on my husband because I don't feel like that's fair. But I'm just scrambling. Like, that's how I feel, is I'm just scrambling. And what I had to remind myself, and there were a lot of people along the way that also helped me, but what I had to remind myself is that what we are doing within nonprofit, actually truly within my nonprofit, is really truly saving lives. Like, that's the ultimate goal. We're giving people tools, resources, information that ultimately and truly can save their life. And it was a reminder that I got in a class that I was doing by a dear friend who happened to take the class, and she had mentioned, if you hadn't asked me those questions on that day that you asked me, like, I asked her if she was suicidal. And she's like, had you not asked me that, I would have never acknowledged that I was actually in a crisis. And I probably wouldn't be here today had you not asked those, because you were the only one that I felt like actually cared at that moment. And that, like, was like, whoa. Like, I mean, full heart right there. Like, wow. Like, we really truly are making a difference in people's lives. And that's what I had to remind myself. It's not about, I mean, sure, it's about the money, because you have to be able to fund your programs, you have to be able to pay the bills. There's a lot of bills that come with businesses, but there's also like the programs and the education and all those things that we want to be able to fund ourselves, and be able to offer it to low income or rural communities. But we can't do that without funding. So I finally got to a place, and to be sustainable, I have to be able to do this full time. I looked at my calendar and I was like, where the heck am I going to fit in a full time job? Like, I can't even fit myself into my schedule, little alone a full time job. So I had to have that like come to Jesus moment with myself of, what are you focusing on? Is it the money that you're focusing on? Is it the impact that you're focusing on? Like, what are you really focusing on? And I had to shift that energy and say, you know, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And if it's something that I have to, for a moment, step away from BCC Evolution to get some income for my personal finances and all of those things, that's what I have to do. And that's okay. But there's also the way to reshift and reframe my brain and what it's doing with this energy. So what did I do? You're probably wondering, what did I do? But I have to go to a quick sponsored break. And once we get back, I will tell you what I actually started doing that really helped to start shifting this energy. So I will see you back in a couple moments. And we're back. I'm back. I always say we, but it's me. If you happen to be joining us now, welcome. And I don't have a guest for today, so you get me. Yay. But what I've been talking about is our brain and how it plays a factor in your mental health. Also, how we can shift the energy, shift the thoughts that are coming through our brain, and how we can stop focusing on the negative and start focusing on the positive. And I understand that everything that I say can feel like a lot potentially if you are somebody that might be in a low place in your life. Also, somebody that might be skeptical. I love those that are skeptical because I just know from personal experience, I am one of those people. Or in the past, not so much now, but in the past, I was very skeptical if any of this would actually work. And I heard it over and over and over, and I was like, well, I might as well try it. Tried it, and it works amazingly enough. So that's why I want to give that information to you. So before I went to the sponsored break, I was talking about really this energy around money and possibly having to step away from BCC Evolution to go again get a full-time job, which I left in 2021 to jump into my nonprofit full-time to be able to really truly run this as a business. We had lost several grant opportunities due to a lack of communication on when the deadline was set. And they were grants that we could have actually gotten, which was really, really frustrating, especially for me. And at those moments, I broke down. I started crying. I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? And I did. I like looked up and I was like, what is the lesson that I'm supposed to learn? What is the lesson that I need to know now? Like, why is this happening? Like, it seemed so easy, and it seemed like there was way more and plenty of prep time to be able to get these grants in, and we didn't get them in. We don't have any funding coming in. We don't have any current classes that people are booking. Like, classes were scheduled, but nobody was coming to the classes. And that's another source of revenue. And like nothing, we had this good cycle going as of last year. And then all of a sudden, it's like it hit a wall and nothing was happening. And so from that energy, was getting really frustrated, and the energy level of this money mindset was just overtaking everything. It was overtaking the way that I acted towards my family. It was overtaking the way that I was communicating. It was overtaking what I was doing, because I was more in the scramble place, this like place of like, well, what can I try here? What can I try here? What can I do here? How can I make money? Who can I talk to? Blah. Right? And then you have to come to this place that you're like, stop. Just stop. It's too much. Trying to do too much. And so what I started doing was refocusing on myself. Because I can't control, like I said earlier, I can't control you. I can't control my neighbors. I can't control the situation. I can't control the events. I can't make people or force people to donate. I can't make or force my board to go find sponsors for us. I can't make or force that energy to bring in anything because it was ultimately like this block. It was like this big wall that I just put up because I was so hyper focused. So, how did I start to shift it? I started focusing on myself. I started working out. I started meditating ish. It's kind of like a meditation, but not really, just listening to somebody and relaxing myself, relaxing my brain. I decided to invest in a program that is called, I think it's the money mindset or something of that nature. It has a lot of like subliminal type things that I'm not like a I'm not like a meditator person. That's not the word. But I in the past I'm like my brain just doesn't stop. Like it just constantly goes. And I did some neurofeedback, which is another type of brain training that you can do. We partner with Parker Neurofeedback. So I went and did some of those and realized that my brain just going like 20 million miles. Like I literally have 20 bazillion tabs open. And I don't know. Oh, I did a live the other day. That's where I was talking about it. But I had all these things starting to come up for me. I had this energy around money. I am going into this Thursday is the opening ceremonies for my climb, and then Friday and Saturday are the actual climb. I'll tell you about that in a minute because I have a lot of energy around that. Good. And we'll talk. So I was like, I need to start training for that. Then I broke my toe. I broke one of my toes. And that put me out for about 4 weeks until I could put pressure. And then I slowly like started getting back into trying to exercise and train. And then I got food poisoning. See, like all these little small things kept happening. So I broke my toe. I couldn't train. I was trying to do what I could, but like my toe legit hurt so bad. I couldn't put it in a shoe. I was like trying to do things like, I don't like not sit ups because you still have to use your feet to do those. But I was trying to like stretch and do those things. And then finally I was just like, I give up. I'm just going to allow my body to heal. And then I got food poisoning, and it was actually on the day of my birthday, and it was not fun. That was the first time actually I think I've actually really truly gotten food poisoning. But what that started was I weaned myself, I guess you could say, because I couldn't drink it, but I couldn't drink coffee in the morning. So I stopped drinking coffee. I also wasn't eating. I was eating crackers and soup for about 3 or 4 days. So I think that actually like reset my metabolism. And so I don't eat as much now as I did before the food poisoning. And so what I'm sharing with you is these things come up, right? But I'm looking for the silver lining of them. I think my body was saying, slow down. Just broke one of your toes because you're trying to hurry. And I was putting my son into bed and it like caught on the edge of his bed and it like bent back. It's this one on this side of my toes. So right next to the baby toe, not the baby toe, not the middle toe, but right next to the baby toe. I don't know what you call that toe, but um that one broke. So of course, in the worst place, I guess you could say. So I had it taped, and I think that was my body saying slow down. Then food poisoning happened, and that was my body saying that I need to reset my metabolism or whatever it was. But that also started me back into exercising again and being consistent with it to be able to make this climb that I will be doing. So it's those silver linings of like, I'm not going to hyper focus on the negative part of breaking my toe, not being able to train. I mean, I could come up with a whole bunch of things that I couldn't do, right? That's where my brain wants to go because we like to have these excuses. We like to blame it on other things versus take ownership for ourselves, because sometimes taking ownership feels really uncomfortable, but it's more comfortable to blame it on something else. So I started looking at the silver lining of like, well, my body needed rest. And now I can get stronger with the food poisoning, although it wasn't my fault. But that was my body needing to rebuild my immune system or whatever it is. That's it's not my immune system, but words. So that was just my body's way of like resetting my body. And then let's see what else. I think that was about all that happened really in between that time. But I learned that I need to focus on myself. So starting the journey of actually working out, being consistent, and then doing this money mindset, the videos, and listening to they do have these meditations where you lay down and you just listen. That was really helpful, and what that started to do was reshift my energy towards positive. And when you start to do that, things really start aligning. And it is one of those things like, what do I need to learn here? What is the lesson that I need to learn? And how do I need to reframe the situation so that I'm not hyper focused on the negative? Because our brain is naturally going to want to veer towards pleasure versus staying in that negative space. But we're really, really good as humans, like holding on to that like it's our baby blanket. Like, this is mine. This is my new identity. All the bad things happen to me. I can't get a break. Nobody helps me. I'm all alone. I have to do everything myself. I can't have or ask anybody. And that was a story that I told around the grant writer, was that I can't ask anybody to do anything for me. I have to do it all myself because it doesn't get done otherwise. That's that's a bad and negative story that I said. But I know that I have people I trust. I know that I can delegate and I can give people things to do. I don't have to do them all myself. Although as a business owner, sometimes delegation is good. But that was a story that I was telling myself, right? Like, I can't rely on anybody because it doesn't get done. So I have to do it all myself. That's not very negative. That's not very positive. How I reframe that is, I have lots of trusted people around me. Therefore, I can give them things to do to help me and they will get it done. Right? That's the shift. And so, if we can, as humans, this thing we control, right? Our heart, we don't control. We don't tell it to beat. We don't tell it to pump the blood. We don't tell it to do what it does in our bodies. But our brain, we can control. It is something that we have lots and lots of, I mean, I'm not going to go like into the science behind the brain because that's not my thing, but I do know that we have what's called neuroplasticity, and we can reconnect those connections that may have disconnected. And when we learn on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a minute basis, which is what I feel like I am every single minute, I'm learning something new. When we're able to learn those new things, we're reconnecting the connectors that were disconnected. And when we start focusing on the positives versus the negative, it helps rebuild our neuroplasticity, which ultimately gives us better and different results. And how cool would that be to have better and different results than what we had in the past? And one more tool I want to give you while I'm here is, you may or may not have noticed, but how I talk about the things that I used to do, I put them in the context of, in the past, I used to worry about money. In the past, I used to not be able to remember things. In the past, I used to have negative energy around money. Now my brain automatically puts that in the past, not in my present. So this is me in my present. The things that I don't want, I can put them in the past, and I can tell myself the words that I used to do that, but I no longer in this present state do that now. One of the stories I said to myself in the past was that I'm not very organized. But what I know now is that I am. It just comes out in different forms than maybe your spreadsheet person or your data driven person. My organization, interestingly enough, I acknowledge this because my son loves Pokemon cards. And I we had a big stack last Christmas. He got a ton of Pokemon cards. So I got a book. And when his birthday, so his birthday is in June we just put them all in pockets. Then it came Christmas and he got so many. So that Christmas I had a stack of like Pokemon cards. And what did I do with them? I organized them by type. So there's basic, stage 1, stage 2. There's also the foils versus the not foils, and et cetera, et cetera. So I organized them into each type. And then each type, I organized them by color. And so anytime I tell myself the story of I'm not organized, I literally can go open his little folder with all of his Pokemon cards and say, I am organized. And in the past, I was not organized, but now I am. And how cool is that to be able to have something that you can say that maybe you said to yourself in the past, but now you know that that's not necessarily true. You know now in this present that you are organized, or I am confident, I am happy, I am joyous, I am able to focus on the things that I create. My vision, my energy is healthy, happy, whatever that might be for you, whatever that feeling that you want to embody, you can do that. And you know how to now, don't you? That's right. It is. It's really easy and it comes effortlessly. And we can move forward in these ways to be able to focus on those positives versus the negatives. And anything negative, we can use the words of I used to, in the past, back in the day, right? So you're getting the language of how we start shifting the energies and being very present in the now. So I hope that was helpful. And I know that was like kind of a big dump of information onto you, but this is really powerful in our body, and it is something we can control. It is also something that we can change at any age. Any age. Maybe in the past you learned something that is um not what you know now. That's not what I was trying to think, but so I have recently talked to and had guests on that talked about like Alzheimer's or dementia. And I know that is something in my family, specifically on my dad's side, that our family is predispositioned to have potentially. All of us are different. All of us experience things differently. And we all have the ability to reset and change our mind, our habits, all of those things. Again, because the brain is really, really powerful if you utilize it and you believe that you can change it. Scientifically, you can, but sometimes it's easier said than done, right? That type of verbiage. So with memory, in the past, I used to forget things. Now I remember everything. Is that true for you? I don't know. Is it true for me? Not necessarily, but I do remember more when I start to say that to myself. Words are easy for me. Math is easy for me. Remembering is easy for me. Does that, so instead of me saying I have memory problems, I can't remember anything, which sometimes happens, or there's times that I say, words are hard for this moment. So I can add that on. See, it shifts the energy to be a little bit different. It makes it so that it is not like hard and fast. It's not that blanket. You don't have to hold on to that blanket. Let it go. Let it go and start to shift your energy whichever way you need it to go. So those are a couple tools that you can utilize because again, if you're not familiar, one of the greats, Joe Dispenza, he has a Becoming Superhuman, I believe is the name of the book. It is all about, he got into a really bad accident. He became a paraplegic and he was told that he would never walk again. He was paralyzed from the neck down. His spine was completely destroyed. Well, he's like, I was laying there in bed. Like, what else am I going to do? He used his mind to rebuild his spine. And now he goes around the world, travels, he walks, he tells everybody about the power of your mind. He literally, like in his imagination and in his brain, he rebuilt piece by piece his spine. And one day he got up and started walking again. That's how powerful our mind is. So if you haven't checked him out, there's a lot of other people that talk about the actual science behind the brain. And I'm learning more and more every single day, which I think is so cool. But really, truly, our minds are very, very powerful. So what we think can influence everything that we do. So if I believe that I'm depressed, if I believed that I have anxiety, if I really believe, I mean, I'm not saying that none of these illnesses, these diseases, any of the disorders, I'm not saying that they're not legit by any means, but there is a way to retrain your brain to believe other things versus maybe that identity that you had in the past. And cancer, I think, is one of those great things that I have seen in the past, and not always. So this is not an always thing, but if you believe that you're going to live through and that your cancer, you can get into remission, and you don't have a timeline that you're fighting against. Most of those people, and I've had several of them on my show as guests, they're survivors. They live, they're in remission. They fought and they knew that the 3 months or the 6 months or the 2 years or whatever it was that the doctor told them was their timeline, they believed that was not their timeline and they were going to live through it, and they did. That's the power of our brain. But those that are like, oh, this is a death sentence, I'm gonna die, they just told me I have 3 weeks. And most people who truly believe that, they're gone within a couple weeks. It's very interesting how our brain, if we hyper focus on those negative things, it actually draws in that energy. But now we can shift and reframe it and focus on the positive things and draw in the positive energy. So now you have a couple more tools, and try it. Try it on. See if it works. If it doesn't, I always like to say, whatever I say, if it's helpful, take it. If it's not, throw it away. I'm absolutely okay with that. Again, I don't ever want to interject my opinions, my model of the world on you. We're all different humans, we're all different beings, and we all come from different backgrounds. And I just like to share information that I have learned over time. And I know there's a lot of scientific backing to the brain. So if it's fascinating to you, like it is to me, go do more research. Again, there's so much more, so many more levels, but I do know for a fact that we can start reconnecting those connectors at any age in our life. Sometimes as you get older, it may be a little bit slower in connecting, but it is always still possible. And you have um, you now have tools to be able to start making those shifts. Last thing I want to say is posture. Posture is really good as you do these. So if you can stand, if you can sit up straight, if you can merely shift your gaze from like down, like I was talking about Eeyore syndrome, reshifting to a like more, if you want to lay on the ground, if that's helpful, or standing up, shoulders back. I like to do the superhero pose, Wonder Woman pose. It makes me feel stronger and more confident, and you can see the energy raising. So if you need a power pose, whatever that pose might be that makes you feel stronger, do it. But that upward motion of your body is also very helpful because our brains are up here. So we need all the energy and all the blood flow that we possibly can into our brain to really help start making those connections. And if you need any suggestions on particular apps or what has been helpful in the past, I can give you some information. So reach out anytime, support at bccevolution.org, or go to our website, which is bccevolution.org, and follow along. Make sure that you follow the show and that you reach out if you have any information. But there will be a rerun for this Wednesday as I am going to Utah to actually do my climb. We are still we're still raising funds. We're trying to get to that $60,000 level. We are just over $10,000. So if you know anybody that wants to support nonprofit, specifically education for mental health, that is the program that it is going to. Please have them text climb the number 4 mind to 44321, or just go to the BCC, B as in boy, C as in Charlie, C as in Charlie, evolution.org and you can find out all the information about the climb that I will be doing this starting on Friday, 6 a.m. in Snow Basin, doing 29.9 miles. And it is going to be amazing. So I will do lots of lives and show you all, and I'll be back next Monday to share my experience with you. I think I might have a guest that day, so it might have to wait, but no worries. Either way, thank you so much for watching, and I will not see you this Wednesday, but you can always watch the rerun. I will see you back next Monday. Have a great night, day, wherever you are in the world. It's still day for me. Bye, y'all.